Hey guys, welcome to the April 2016 edition of Casual MTG. I'm Neat Sahone, and I post one of these once a month, the first Wednesday of every month. And this series is all decks intended more for kitchen table play, built around quirky cards or strategies. The last couple months, I've let my Twitter followers help me determine what kind of deck I'll build for the Casual MTG video for the coming month. And this month, the card that I gave my followers a choice between a couple cards that I would build around, and this month Homicidal Seclusion beat out Arcanum Wings, so that's what we're doing here. And as I said, these are very casual kitchen table decks that are also, for the most part, very easy to build in terms of cost. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and get into the deck tech, tell you guys what this deck does. I mean, obviously with Homicidal Seclusion, basically the goal of this deck is to only have one creature in place, so it can take advantage of that huge bonus that creatures get. So basically this deck is just a blue-black control deck that wins in a really unconventional way because it tries to win with Homicidal Seclusion plus one creature. And once you have Homicidal Seclusion and a creature in play that can stick, your opponent basically has no way of outracing you, barring a ridiculous amount of damage, because you just gain so much life. So the goal for the deck was sort of to find creatures that suited Homicidal Seclusion's needs well, and so this deck only has 8 creatures, as you'd expect in a deck that only wants one in play, but all of them are very good when you are attacking with them alone or when Homicidal Seclusion is in play. So one of the creatures we have is Invisible Stalker. Obviously, you know, if he's unblockable and he's swinging for 4 every turn and I'm gaining 4 every turn, it's pretty hard for an opponent to race that, and that's, you know, one of the ways this deck can win. The other creature the deck has is Lone Revenant, 3 copies of that. It has hexproof, just like Invisible Stalker. So we have these massive hexproof lifelink creatures. Lone Revenant, considerably larger than Invisible Stalker, but it's not unblockable. However, it's pretty hard for the opponent to block when it's a 7/5. And if they don't block it, you get to just dig for more answers for what they're doing in your deck. And then there's also one Nephrox, Overlord of Grixis, the only creature without hexproof in the deck. But he has Exalted, so attacking alone works well for him already. Plus, when he attacks alone, it forces the defending player to sacrifice a creature. So those are our 3 win conditions, those plus Homicidal Seclusion. We also have 1 copy of Deadly Wanderings, sort of as like a 5th copy, just to put some redundancy in our deck. It's not as good, I don't think, most of the time as Homicidal Seclusion. It gives less of a bonus, but it does give Death Touch, and sometimes that's relevant. So now that we've talked about, you know, sort of the goal of the deck, getting one of these creatures in play and just killing them with Homicidal Seclusion from the massive damage the creature's doing and the life link and everything, I'll talk about the mana base. I do have 1 Cathedral of War because it's a card that wants you to be attacking alone, makes our guys even bigger. 4 Dismal Backwaters, you know, one of the cheaper lands that can produce 2 colors. Does come into play tap, though. 4 Drowned Catacombs, pretty good deals on Drowned Catacombs. A pretty cheap land to have, and it's a very good one. 2 Evolving Wilds to help me fix a little more. And then we got 4 Islands, 2 Sunken Hollows, and then, you know, several swamps. What is that, 7? Yeah. So the mana base does have 24 lands because the deck, you know, is a control deck. I don't really care that much. I don't want to be curving out, really. So it doesn't, you know, I don't need a low number of lands so that I can just, you know, be playing 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop. So that's not what I need. I need a lot of lands to make sure I can play like Nephrox in my 5-mana enchantment. So yeah, but so I'll talk about sort of the control elements of the deck now, which is basically the rest of the deck that we haven't talked about. So we have Serum Visions, of course. Card draw helps us find our Deadly Wanderings or our Homicidal Seclusions. It's probably, I think it is the most expensive single card in the deck, but it's so good it's hard not to put in the deck. They are about $2 each, and the total cost of this deck's about $18, so that tells you how much of the cost they take up. There's 2 Vendettas, which is a card I think is kind of underplayed in Modern, especially like by people building budget decks. Lots of people do run Doomblade, which does the same thing, except it allows regeneration and costs 1 more. Vendetta does, you know, you lose life, but since this deck, you know, has lifelink you know, and that's one of the ways it wins and beats people, playing Vendetta is not a huge deal in the deck. And so I run 2 Vendettas, which, as I said, I think is a little bit underplayed in, like, you know, budget Modern in general. I have 4 Anticipates, further card selection. Also lets me leave up other things like the removal spells and the mana leaks that I'll talk about in a moment. Helps us dig for, you know, a lot of times either this deck needs a creature or it needs a Homicidal Seclusion, and Anticipate and Serum Visions help make that happen. 4 mana leaks to counter early spells and, you know, keep us from dying early before we can stick our our Homicidal Seclusion. And then I do have 1 Doomblade to go for the throat. So basically a lot of kill spells and counter magic. A couple board sweepers in the form of 2 Languishes. Then 3 Lone Revenants, which you mentioned, the Homicidal Seclusion, and the Deadly Wanderings you mentioned, but we didn't mention Murderous Cut. This card, you know, is usually going to be 1 black, destroy a creature, because we have all these instants and sorceries, so having a couple of those is good. Crux of Fate is another board sweeper. You know, Languish doesn't hit everything, but the Crux, you know, basically does, unless there's, you know, dragons in play. I also have the 1 Deadly Warnings that I mentioned, and that's basically the entire deck. You know, it's just a deck that tries to stick 1 creature and win with that creature. In the meantime, I just, you know, blow up the board to stop my opponent from killing me, blow up their creatures, counter their spells until I can sort of get, you know, one of these combos into play, which is basically Homicidal Seclusion plus any creature. I'll talk about the sideboard some. It's, you know, mostly just intended to make our removal a little more consistent and things like that, and our counter magic. So we have like 1 Annul for against opponent with lots of artifacts and enchantments, 1 Death Mark for against green or white decks, Duress to disrupt other control decks, Negate for spell heavy decks. You know, you can take out Mana Leak for that. A couple more Doom Blades if I'm playing against an artifact deck, and a couple go for the throats if I'm playing against a black deck. And Ultimate Price is sometimes better than either of these, because sometimes you're playing like a black deck, but you know that's 2 colors, but they have mostly black creatures and monocolored creatures, and so Ultimate Price works out. I want to Execute. Just I like it because it replaces itself. Additional Deadly Wanderings, because as I said, sometimes Death Touch is better against certain opponents when you really need, you know, just for your Invisible Stalker to trade for their biggest beater, and another board sweeper in the form of Life's Finale that can also be used to sort of search out combo pieces if I need to. So that is the deck. I will show you real quickly what it costs. It costs, yeah, $18.30 as of the end of March when I'm recording this. And Serum Visions is definitely, yeah, it's like $8.88 of the cost. So, I mean, if you don't want to run Serum Visions, you can probably get away with Sleight of Hand, and that would reduce the cost of this deck by a lot. But it is so good that it's hard to say no to. It just lets you look at so many cards, and that's a great thing. All right, so that's the deck. I'll play 3 games with it now, as I do every month. And thanks for watching. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.